processes to ban activities of party militia as he regrets the recurring political violence, but confident recommendations in the Emil Short Commission report will rid the country of it.
The recommendations and findings will help us on the road to ridding our nation of this canker of politically related violence that has unfortunately become part of the culture of our politics. It's regrettable that that should be the case.
We have details of that latest letter to the NDC from the president, and also get reactions from the NDC and some civil society organizations. Also coming up, activities of political party vigilantes come under the spotlight. In 2018, U.S. Human Rights Report at a time calls for disbandment of militia groups are intensifying.
The report expresses concern about post-election violence, including takeovers of government institutions by vigilante groups associated with the governing New Patriotic Party.
We have details plus a challenge from the governing NPP for the NDC to begin moves internally to get rid of these groups.
I want to call on my NDC colleague, the national organizer of the NDC. From our side, led by myself as national organizer, I have hit the ground as the field person for the party and head of his operations for the party. I want to see that kind of leadership also being exhibited by my NDC colleague.
Plus, former President John Dramani Mahama charges government to hold a bipartisan economic forum to address the free fall of the cedi. We'll also hear from some importers in Kumasi who have issued a 2-week ultimatum to government to fix the situation or face their wrath.
Also, to work on the fast cedi depreciation. If nothing is done, we will hit the streets in a grand style. We promise the government will.
And in business, government begins Eurobond investor engagement in New York as it works to raise about $3 billion next month.
And later in sports, we'll tell you the story of how Black Stars and Udinese midfielder Emmanuel Ajman-Bedu paid 2,500 Ghana cedis to save the life of a female footballer.
We have all that and more here coming up on Newsnight. Do join us with your thoughts and comments via WhatsApp on 0244 340 437. I am MFA Pao. And we start off from something that we've been doing on Top Story, just in case you missed it, because the President Akufo-Addo, has responded to the NDC's second letter. They wrote to him justifying why they were making calls for a mediator and also the expansion of the scope of that meeting that he had directed that the NPP and the NDC undertakes to work out modalities to disbanding party militias. Of course, our campaign continues on hashtag disband party militias now. And just in case you missed it, Elton Brobe still has a copy of that letter. Elton, take us through it verbatim.
So, MFA, this is in response to the second letter wrote by the NDC National Chair, Mr. Ofosu-Ampofo, to the President on the need for the expansion of the membership to look into this particular matter. The President has a response, and the response is in two parts. The first one says, I note that you have quite properly given a copy of it to the National Chair of the NPP, that's Mr. Freddie Blay. Now, he says, I have asked him to respond to its contents since he's the rightful person to speak directly for the New Patriotic Party, and I expect that he will do so. Now, the second part says that since the constitutional responsibility of maintaining law and order in our country is that of the executive, that is the President of the Republic, I have, in line with my pronouncement to Parliament during the message on the state of the nation on the 21st of February 2019, instructed the Attorney General without prejudice to the outcome of the engagement, if any, between the NPP and the NDC to prepare and submit to Parliament as soon as possible specific legislation to deal with the phenomenon of vigilantism and provide appropriate sanctions against its occurrence. I believe that the parliamentary process of enactment affords sufficient space for any citizen to make an input or contribution to the enactment of a good and effective law whose implementation will enable us to rid our nation of politically related violence, a development that can only inure to the benefit of Ghanaian democracy and to the preservation of law and order. And this is signed by the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, copied to the NDC National Chair, the NPP National Chair, and the chairperson of the National Peace Council.
We'll definitely get reactions to this, and it raises a number of issues. Is the president tired of the back and forth between the NPP and the NDC regarding his directive for the two parties to meet? Once we're able to raise Eugene Ahin on the lineup, we'll get to get into the mind of the president in terms of this response to the NDC. But let's speak to the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Boama Otokuno, on this latest development. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight, Mr. Otokuno. You've been listening to excerpts on, in fact, the whole letter as read out by my colleague Elton Brobe. Your immediate reaction?
Let me make the point that we had left the office after office hours, and we have not officially seen the hard copy, but we've taken note of the one circulating on social media, and we would speak to it as it is circulated on social media, provided it is not one of the fake news pranks. But more importantly, we take note that the president has ceded the leadership of the NPP in terms of this discussion to the national chairman, because we know he is the leader of the NPP, and we'll be anticipating the response therein. But we are again worried about the tone of this letter, which indicates clearly that the president has not had a change of mind on this position that the NPP and NDC are the only groups that can meet to discuss this matter. We think that that is rather unfortunate, considering the fact that, moral society, civil society, clergy, and almost everybody is thinking that the best way to deal with this matter is to expand the scope of the discussion, get in more stakeholders. Let's find a permanent solution to this. And we still do not see the change of mind from the president. We are hoping and anticipating that perhaps maybe the letter that will come from the party would have that kind of change of mind to bring in all other major stakeholders. But again, we are also taking note that the president is gradually waking up to the responsibility that the authority is clothed in him as a president to exercise and protect life and property in this country and protect our democracy. And I feel particularly gratified that he mentioned that in the letter, that he's clothed with the authority to protect life and property. So he has directed the Attorney General to start legislative work towards disbanding vigilantes. I think it's in the right direction. But we are a bit worried because that may take a very long time. Now, if the opportunity to bring all stakeholders on board at a particular conference, professionally facilitated with a mediator or a moderator in place, we think that outcome for such a conference, for such a meeting, will form a very strong basis for the work of the Attorney General, rather than ask the Attorney General to start working in space and, start going around and picking information and drafting something. It goes through cabinet and must go through long process before it gets to parliament and all that. We believe that the discussions would even get the major stakeholders or even the players in this mandates of party militia to take some steps before the legislation comes into force. So we think perhaps maybe the president may have to be reviewing his position along the line through the party, since he has ceded the discussions to his political party. But as we move on, we still emphasize and we still reiterate the point that we need to get professional facilitators. We need to get this meeting properly moderated, and we need to get other stakeholders involved in the discussion.
So that's quite some opening remarks there, Mr. Otokuno. But a number of issues you raise. First of all, on ceding power to Freddie Blade, like you said. When did the president lose the right to delegate?
Well, the president is the leader of the NPP. So if he says that the national chairman of the NPP should take charge the discussions on behalf of the party, he is not wrong in his party, but we feel that he is the president of this country. And as he had mentioned in the letter, he is clothed with the authority to protect life and property, to exercise the Constitution. And perhaps that is what we were trying to wake him up to. That is the reality we were trying to prick him up to. But it appears that he still wants the party to engage in a two-man discussion with the NDC, which we strongly oppose to, and which moral society, civil society, and the clergy have strongly been opposed to. So we are just looking at how perhaps the MPP will start the discussion. But before I go, let me also indicate the level of pessimism and the lack of optimism on the part of the president, as indicated in the letter, where he mentioned that if he is hoping for the meeting between NDC and MPP, if any, should come on. I mean, the president is not even hopeful that the meeting will come on.
Because since he directed, that meeting has still not happened. How do you expect him to be hopeful when he's asked you 21 days to meet, yet that meeting has not even started, and you are making demands upon demands, back and forth upon back and forth? Don't you think that in this response that the president has given, he's actually ignoring your tantrums, so to speak?
No, not at all. We don't expect the president to be recalcitrant. If the president is committed to solving this problem, and the moral society, the entire populace, everybody in Ghana, the media, the civil society organizations, the clergy are saying that, Mr. President, you are wrong on this path. Change your position. Let's do it this way. It's going to help. And the president is remaining recalcitrant, and he's now expressing a lack of faith, in a lack of optimism in the meeting coming on. Then it tells you clearly that the president is the problem, not the NDC, not any other civil society.
Okay, so let's get it clear. Let's get it clear, Mr. Otokuno. So the NDC will only agree to meet to work out modalities to disband political party militias only if the president gives that or agrees to your demands. Is that it?
On Monday, when we are taking note of this letter, we will be looking at it and we will take a decision. But before then, our position, and I wish to reiterate that position, is that we think that the best way to deal with this matter is to get the meeting properly and professionally facilitated, so that we will not go and sit in a meeting with mistrust. Clearly, from the response of the president the last time and the issues that have come up, the revelations by your media house, FM and Manasseh, and all that has put the president in a very bad position in terms of honesty. So we are hoping that such dishonesty or such level of insincerity will not distract or frustrate our discussions, and that's our fear. So we are hoping that the right platform is provided so that we can engender the discussion in honesty and sincerity, and deal with this menace once and for all.
Just before I let you off, Mr. Otokuno, well, beyond the disclaimers that you've issued, we've heard the NPP say that they've already started moves to work out modalities to disband party militias even before the two parties meet, and they are challenging your party to do same. At least we've heard from Samia Wuku saying that they've been working it out to ensure that they rid their party of these groups. What have you done as a party? Because you've expressed your commitment to disbanding these militia groups. What have you done as a party ahead of this meeting?
Well, on the contrary, I have heard the national organizer of the NPP, Samia Wuku, saying that they are going to take steps to register these organizations as companies and so on and so forth. I have not heard the party that you have just mentioned. But if it is anything to go by, registering them and formalizing them, it doesn't mean that they are disbanding them. It just means that they are putting them in another form, which may also still keep the threat in place against our democracy. But on your specific question of we disbanding vigilante groups on our side, we have made the point, time without number, that we do not own any party vigilante group that is recognized by the party as an organization. But if we are to go by the claim that the Azoka Boys, led by an individual, and any other group led by individual, can be considered as NDC vigilante groups because their leaders are members of the NDC. When the right platform is provided, when the conditions are set clear, when we know that the systems and the state structures are ready to protect life and property of the people, we will not hesitate at all to impress on those individuals to demobilize their activities. But
so what I asked specifically, Mr. Otokuno, is that what have you done? What steps have you taken? Because you've stated in your letters to the president that you are committed to working to disband these political party and militias that are affiliated to your party. And I'm asking what specifically you've done whilst waiting for this meeting, or prior to this meeting. Nothing has been done by the NDC to work out modalities to disband these groups.
MFI, you have to understand that this issue of party militia that has come to fore has taken a different form. We are talking about people who have been trained in paramilitary tactics and combat. They have been weaponized. Now, if you want to disband vigilantes, what you have to do is to be demobilizing them, disarming them, and so on and so forth. And we do not have any of such group in the NDC. We do not have a group that is trained in paramilitary tactics, combating, weaponized, and so on and so forth. We do not have all those kind of groups like the NPP are having. So we, as we have said, the individual groups that are community-based organizations led by individuals and so on and so forth, that we can engage to, if you want, demobilize. I mean, those ones we have started discussions with them already. Okay. That is why we are very firm on our position that we are ready to disband vigilantism from our body.
So the ones that Mr. Yamin makes reference to, for instance, is not known in your party, right?
No, we do not know any other group.
So whilst the party is going one way, you have a member also going the other way, and you're saying that you don't know these groups.
No, he has come out clearly to indicate that he didn't make any such comments, and he has not made any such commitment either. Today, we had met him and we had discussed that extensively. So the work we are.
So the party went ahead of itself to issue that disclaimer.
We want to see the commitment of the president. We want to see the commitment of the NPP. Bear in mind that at Ayawa Westwagon, the NDC were victims, and we were beaten mercilessly and shot mercilessly. And all these individuals are in the security agencies. They are still operating.
Okay, Mr. Otokuno, we'll leave it here. We are grateful for your time. That's the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mr. Peter Boamah Otokuno, there speaking to us here on Newsnight. Let's quickly get a reaction also and listen to the NPP we have on the line, the national organizer of the NPP, Mr. Samuel Ewuku. We're grateful for your time, Mr. Samuel Ewuku, here on Newsnight. So the president's latest response to the NDC, he's directed that your party chairman, Mr. Freddie Blay, responds directly to some of the concerns that the NDC has raised in their letter to him. Has that been done, do we know?
Well, good evening, MFR, and good evening to your listeners. First of all, we have received the president's letter today. I can also confidently tell you that the NPP is preparing by end of week, that's by end of tomorrow, all things being called, to send a letter, an official letter of invitation to the largest opposition party. It's unfortunate because our national chairman's understanding was that when you go into negotiations, sometimes you need to have an informal discussion first, so that the two national chairmen would have set the parameters for discussion, and then they can rope in the rest of the executives from both sides. They've been members of parliament before, they've been colleagues before, and these are not warring factions. The two political parties are not at war. And the supreme interest of our country, a time comes when that sacrifice must be borne, so that in the interest of our nation, we can engage each other. It is also quite unfortunate that, whereas on the part of the NPP, we have taken concrete steps to deal and engage groups from our side, the NDC has been consistent in maintaining that they don't know Azoka, they don't know the Hawks, they don't know the task force, the groups that have rained terror on the citizens, and also been engaged in acts of vandalism, hooliganism, and thuggery. So sometimes it makes the process a bit frustrating. But I can confidently tell you, when we, the NPP, had the National Council meeting yesterday or so, the president kept encouraging us that we shouldn't get tired, we shouldn't get frustrated, we shouldn't get discouraged by the posturing of the NDC, but instead continue to work in harmony with our colleagues from the largest opposition party to find lasting solutions. Mr. President had earlier indicated when he addressed Parliament that he will be taking steps to initiate legislation in Parliament
And just this evening, from
that's after these two political parties failed to meet, which you have not done, which you failed. So he's forced to trigger the second option.
MFR, the national chairman of the NPP, on 5 different occasions, he's placed calls to his NDC counterpart. On some occasions, chairman of Osampo was, okay, I'll call you back. I'm in a meeting. Okay, let's discuss this tomorrow. Okay, we'll see what we can do. So it's clear the NDC, they've been shifting the goalposts. Subsequent to that, the national chairman and the leadership of the party mandated that myself, the national organizer, lead a team of our organizers, the youth leader, the national women's organizer, the national coordinator, and some groups from our side, over 29 members from our operations side. We toured 57 constituencies within the 5 regions of the North, engaging our side. But if you return from such a hectic trip, only to find your counterpart, the opposition party, not making a move even to the next constituency next to the party headquarters, then it becomes a bit frustrating. I'm surprised that Joy FM and Multimedia is letting NDC off the hook after, starting this whole hashtag thing. It's important that you put the opposition party on the spot.
How have we left the NDC off the hook? At least you heard me speak to Peter Boamoto-Kuno now, asking him what measures they have put in place. So that's unfair for you to say that we have left the opposition off the hook, have we?
I don't think guys have been biting when it comes to the posting of the largest opposition party. They haven't moved an inch beyond Accra. Even within Accra, they haven't engaged a single soul. And if you listen to the commentary and the submissions of the... They
place all these at your doorstep because you were asked to write a letter. You should start the process for this meeting to happen, Mr. Ewuku. That has not happened.
Let's be very frank. I mean, let's be fair and fair. Let me state this. If the NPP writes a letter to the NDC, what the NDC intends doing, and I can predict their action, they will write back and state the conditions within which they want to meet. Then the NPP also responds in another letter. Is that the kind of situation?
Then it tells us that the 2 main political parties are not committed to disbanding these groups.
That is where we disagree, because for us in the NPP, it is visible and evidently clear that we've taken steps beyond even just sending the letter and the conversation between our national chairman and that of the NDC's national chairman. For them to even meet, set the tone, have the modalities in place and the parameters within which, at least when a letter is being written, then this gentleman's agreement can even start from there.
Okay.
Now, what they want us to do is for us to just write a formal letter that we request for a meeting. Okay, so then the NDC responds and they want to know the agenda for the meeting and the parameters within which everything stated on paper. Is that the kind of situation we want to engage ourselves? People are being named anytime there's a by-election or an election. And I'm surprised the NDP is also playing victim. That's exactly what we want to shy away from.
Okay.
And I say this because if we want to cite cases where we've been victims, I'm not sure we're going to end the conversation today. So we want to call on the NDC side to show greater commitment. Because today I'm hearing for the first time that the NDC is saying that Azoka is just a group formed by an individual and it's not affiliated to the NDC. They said saying when it was the Hawk. They said saying when it was the task force. So when you do that, then you're asking the NPP that has shown greater commitment to require and say, okay, we also do not own any group because we haven't sponsored or formed any group as a new patriotic party or sponsored from our organization outside. So then the situation is left in limbo. Okay. The legislation will come from government side.
But that will be disappointing. But we would have to leave it here, Mr. Samir Oku. We're indeed grateful for your time. That's the national organizer of the NPP. But there's this important part of that letter because there were 2 calls that were made by the president during the State of the Nation address that these 2 parties meet or he, submits a legislation to Parliament for these groups to be disbanded. So today in this letter, he makes reference to it that he's instructed the Attorney General without prejudice to the outcome of the engagement, if any, between the NPP and NDC to prepare and submit to Parliament as soon as possible specific legislation to deal with the phenomenon of vigilantism and provide appropriate sanction against its occurrence. Let's get some clarity on this because earlier Mr. James Agalga, like I said, had raised concerns about the president enacting such a law. Mr. Kofi Bentil is a renowned lawyer. He joins us on the line for a brief clarification to this confusion that some people have in their minds. So Mr. Bentil, we are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. The big question question for some is that, does the president need the AG to issue this, or he can just go ahead and issue an executive instrument if he so wills? Hello, Mr. Kofi Bento.
Hello.
Okay, Mr. Kofi Bento, if you can hear me now, I'm asking that you help us with this brief clarification that we've heard that the president has instructed the Attorney General to, prepare that document to Parliament for submission so that we can disband these political party militias. And I'm asking whether the president needs the Attorney General to start all this long process, some would say, or just issue an executive instrument for this to happen.
Well, thank you. I wasn't sure I had everything right, but I guess what you're asking is whether the whole issue of the president asking the Attorney General to initiate legislation against vigilantism is the right thing. And I have made the position clear that it is not necessary. Indeed, it is futile. Now, there's a lot to say about that, but specifically on this matter, this is how we'll have to look at it. There are enough laws against this kind of activity. And we need to appreciate something. Crime is determined from action. Okay? So if you call somebody a vigilante, it doesn't matter what they call themselves. If you call them a militia, it doesn't matter what they call themselves. If they take a certain action or do certain things that constitute a crime under our laws, you take them on. And what these vigilantes or so-called militias or whatever do, it's crime. And so you deal with them. And there are many laws to deal with that. That is number one. Number two is that in this country, the law does not allow anybody to constitute themselves into a private army, so-called. And what we are calling vigilantism itself, even though it has positive connotations, is illegal. Now, the president only needs to issue an executive order that says the law of this land is that only the police may undertake security operations within this country. And if they want or need to, they can get the army to support them under a clear command and control arrangement. To that extent, therefore, every state institution should make sure it strictly complies with that rule. And that is with reference to the National Security Secretariat, which takes certain groups into forces for their so-called operations. What that will do is that anytime there is any kind of operation anywhere in this country, it is either the police or the police and the army or the police and some other institution that they are working with. Now, anybody, therefore, vigilante, private army, whatever they are called, militias, that tries to do any such thing should be arrested, detained, and dealt with. Now, it may look very simple, but honestly, this is the only way out of this one. Now, if the president says we should initiate legislation against vigilantes, what you need to understand is that even the discussions the political parties are going to engage in will have no effect.
Okay, so from what you're saying, this whole call for the two political parties to meet to work out these modalities may not even be necessary if the president goes ahead to issue the executive order.
No, I'm saying both of them are not. The executive order is necessary, but that meeting between political parties may be good for them to get a certain understanding between themselves. But as far as the rest of us citizens are concerned, it has no bearing on what vigilantes do. They don't claim to own the vigilantes. And because of the freedom of association guaranteed in our Constitution, you cannot stop any group of people from coming together. So what we need to do is to have a situation where the president issues an order that anybody or group who is found to be doing a certain set of things to simply be arrested by the police and dealt with according to law. Then all of these other things would not necessarily, have to take place for these other things to happen.
Okay.
On the other hand, without that executive order, we can have all the political parties meeting. We will still have vigilantism.
We're grateful for your time. That's Mr. Kofi Bento. He's a lawyer. But just before we wrap up this whole talk on vigilantism, the 2018 U.S. Human Rights Report has captured the issue of political vigilantism as a major source of concern to the country's governance. The report was presented in Washington, D.C. yesterday by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Here are extracts of the report.
The State Department's Human Rights Report for 2018, released last Wednesday, highlights 17 cases of attacks on journalists. It documents the incident involving Joy News' Latif Idris, who sustained fractures to his skull when he was brutalized at the police headquarters. The report decries a lack of updates from government on the matter. It also makes reference to the July 2018 police killing of 7 Aswasi Zongo youth and observed that although the victims' families have now been compensated, the perpetrators are yet to be brought to justice. The report also makes mention of Asin Central MP Kennedy Ejepong, who exposed the identity of assassinated undercover journalist Ahmed Swale. On corruption and lack of transparency in government, it said although the law provides criminal penalties for corruption by government officials, government did not implement the law effectively, and officials frequently engaged in corrupt practices with impunity. There were numerous reports of government corruption during the year, and corruption was present in all branches of government. It also touched on the dismissal of a former Electoral Commission chairperson, Charlotte Osei, saying the June outstar of a chairperson and the president's subsequent stacking of a commission with persons considered to be biased in favor of a governing party, quote, raised questions about whether the body might be used to stifle voter registration among the opposition's base, end quote. The report briefly throws the spotlight on vigilante groups as it expresses concern about post-election violence, including takeovers of government institutions by vigilante groups associated with the governing New Patriotic Party.
So that's extracts of that U.S. report for 2018, Human Rights Report. You're still listening to Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. The campaign continues. Hashtag disband party militias now. We'll take a quick break. We're right back.
Here's what people are saying about the GCB Easy Pick.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense. Yes, saving makes a lot more sense now. GCB Bank will pay for anything you buy from phones, TVs, air conditioners, generators, solar equipment to roofing sheets from any GCB partner shop. And you can pay back later at a reduced price of up to 25% in discounts. Simply walk into any GCB partner shop, pick up what you want at a GCB discount price and fill a form. GCB will pay for you so you can pay back later in installments. Go, get it sooner, get it cheaper, pay later. GCB Easy Pick, it just makes sense. Terms and conditions apply.
GCB Bank, your bank for life.
Asu, are you in the market yet?
Yes, ma.
Kindly buy me a few more things.
Okay, ma.
I'll send the money one by one so that I don't mix them up. I received 2 Ghana cedis alert now.
Yes, ma.
Good. Use that to buy red salty tolo beef. For 10 cedis not topping up, not of fresh live cockerel. 50 pesos for original red mukweshu and
Ma, why don't you send it all at once?
With Vodafone Cash Ahoto, you pay just 3 Ghana cedis each month, and you can send any amount of money to family, friends, and business partners as many times as you want at no extra cost. There's a 1% pay. Register for Vodafone Cash and subscribe monthly to the Ahoto offer by dialing *110# and selecting option 8.
The future is exciting. Ready?
Thank you, folks. On my A list today, show some love for Contractor EB. So, Contractor, what do you think about the country's changing skyline?
Oh, send them down there, Shurima. Across skyline, they change you, papa.
Wow. Contractor, don't you get worried when you hear of buildings collapsing?
I'm out for an aswan on Tassam. It is the likability of using low quality product.
Please explain why.
Yeah, cement is no quality on the gasem. Village of Fefu. It was built with gasem. Says the gasem construction. See what pumping. N1, Kenya Market, Kotokana Kumasi Airport, Cape Coast Stadium, a trouble gas project in Gasebo. Messi, what the quality? You know what is the quality?
Gasem, 3 cement grades, greater value. Gasem, the nation builder.
Thanks for staying with us here on Newsnight. It's time now for Business with George. Welcome back.
Thank you,
George. What's in business?
Well, MF, coming up in business, government begins Eurobond investor engagement in New York as it works to raise about $3 billion next month. And Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta gives fresh reasons for creating the Ghana Amalgamated Trust. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials. And First National Bank, we are the bank that understands your business. First National Bank, how can we help you? Let's now settle for the details. Now, government has started engaging investors over plans to raise some $3 billion in Eurobond. Sources say the team has started talking to investors and some banks in New York. They will later move to Boston in the US and then move to London, which will be targeting the European investors in its last round of roadshow. Now, this engagement is just to test the market to find out whether there's demand for the country's Eurobond and at what price would they offer for these bonds. Let's get the views of economist Professor Godfrey Bobkin on the timing and the impact on the country's cost of borrowing.
The question of whether the market is right for us to do Eurobond will be difficult to answer, largely because we don't have a choice. Right now, we don't have a choice. And it doesn't look like it's going to get quite favorable to us in the next couple of months. I want to believe that the government may be targeting the issue to coincide with last review of the IMF program, so that when we successfully exit the program, at the back of that good news, they will do the issue and perhaps the markets will receive us favorably. But there are concerns. There are concerns about the fact that the post-IMF measures the Ghana government has put in place, I don't think it sits quite well with investor confidence in terms of the Fiscal Council and other measures. I think aside that, there are so many things happening in the country right now in terms of negative reportage, negative news. I want to call it negative news. Vigilantism. Already the political temperature is heightened to some extent. It's as though the 2020 election started yesterday.
Bobkin, Professor Godfrey Bobkin, is an economist now. Sources say government would kickstart the process of raising the actual funds after the IMF board meeting on Ghana on March 20. Now, the finance minister has indicated that they plan using the funds to finance some critical projects outlined in the budget, as well as some expensive debts and pay off some debts that are maturing. Now, these are the institutions that are helping Ghana to raise the money. Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan are said to be the lead arrangers, while Morgan Stanley, Standard Chartered Bank, PLC and Group locally, Fidelity Bank and IC Securities, as well as DataBank Group are the local arrangers for this offer. In a related development, government could soon start the process of raising the $750 million from London-based Standard Chartered Bank. Now, this was after Parliament gave its approval for them to go ahead. Now, government could start the negotiations looking at getting a good price for the funds. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says he supported the creation of the Ghana Amalgamated Trust to assist good local banks that were struggling to recapitalize. Finance Minister earlier this year supported the creation of the trust to help raise some 2 billion Ghana cedis to recapitalize some 5 local banks. However, some have criticized this move, questioning the minister's move. The Minister of Finance says there wasn't any ill motive behind this decision.
The interesting thing we did was to create the Ghana Amalgamated Trust, which is really not different from what the U.S. did when the meltdown occurred, in which they created a trust, which in the end, actually, the government made up of quite a bit of money because it became profitable. Now, the structure enables us to be able to look at the issues of governance and leadership, because GATT, as you know, is being run by Mr. Albert Asian as chair, and Eric Otu, and Albert used to run EcoBank Transnational. So we are very confident that this is the way to go, and we are expecting the pension funds to participate in it.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Now, firms in the import business are said to be the hardest hit as a result of the local currency depreciation. Now, depending on your bank dealings, the dollar is likely to be sold to you around 5 Ghana cedis, 63 pesos. So is hedging the best way out? Jacob actually works at Barclays Bank.
For a business that has FX that it intends to sell in the future, I'll recommend that probably this is the time to sell those FX forward. And by selling forward, the business would have protected itself from any possible reversal, because we don't expect the currency to depreciate forever. For FS buyers, given that the currency has already depreciated about 5% year to date, I'm not sure it is ideal for them to buy forward, but rather recommend some form of hedging structure which will let them, which will give them that flexibility to walk away in the future if the prevailing rate on the spot market is lower than what has been agreed. So I'll recommend some form of hedging. It's important for business to speak with their bankers who will be able to explain this type of products, and if there's any cost associated with them, they'll be able to explain to them so that they decide what steps to take next.
And that is an expert with Barclays Bank. That is Jacob Brobe with Barclays Bank, telling us the options that are available for you. Now, if you look at the cedi's depreciation from year to date, that's done about 15.5%. that is, the city's recent depreciation against the dollar. Now, some agri workers here, they welcome moves by Cocoa Board to collaborate with their Ivorian counterparts on having common standards for marketing cocoa beans. Now, this was after Cocoa Board initiated an agreement with its counterparts in Ivory Coast of having a common marketing standards for export of beans in the region, as well as harmonizing their trading system. Let's hear from Edward Karawa. He is with the General Agricultural Workers Union.
We often hear that cocoa is smuggled into Cote d'Ivoire because the price in Cote d'Ivoire is higher. And another time you hear that cocoa is being smuggled into Ghana because the price in Ghana is higher. So the two countries need to actually collaborate and find common grounds. Certainly their collaboration cannot resolve all the challenges, but it will reduce those challenges. And I think that it's in order that the two countries are collaborating, not only in pricing, but even production experiences and so on. And also the most important thing is to collaborate to be able to deal with the international market.
The carrier is with the General Agricultural Workers Union to the stock market. And if you're a shareholder of GUEL, the value actually went down by 29 pesos and is now worth 2 Ghana cedis, 54 pesos. Let's look at GCB. Was up by 10 pesos and is now worth 4 Ghana cedis. Some good news there for shareholders of GCB. And that's all for business on Newsnight. And I saw you having something about the Ghana city, about a national economic forum on the city.
On the city.
I mean, yes, there are issues about the short-term measures, but in every economy, when these things happen, there are short-term strategies, bringing in some money a little bit to stabilize things. So it's a supply and a demand issue. And already, if you look at the number, something has started happening already on the market with respect to the Ghana city. So in the interim measure, you can pump in some dollars to stabilize things. But the long-term approach, changing the structure of your economy, exporting more, consuming more locally, so you spend less on, not to be chauvinist, but even nails, Brazilian hair. I mean, some of the things that you look at the import bill that we spend in bringing
So a foreign will not be the way to go.
I think we know the problem already.
Okay.
It's about the commitment to work on it.
Okay. That's George Riafio with the very latest from the world of business. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to the MTN Weather Report. I'm off for and dry. But this year, whatever your needs are, we're there for you. Now the details of my weather report. 15,000 cities will blow from the intertropical boundaries across the country. We can also see a mist of fog patches of 25,000 cities and a heavy monetary downpour of 30,000 cities are a move to treat the dry season across the country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everywhere you go, whether it be school fees or acquisition fees, we're there for you. Rent advance, salary advance, your sorted advance, because with MTN, we're there for you. Now keep talking, browsing, texting, and sending Momo to accumulate points and win prizes each month to cushion you this year in the MTN More For You promo. 80 dial *120#. Now check your points. We're there for you everywhere you go.
Everybody make us see you do the dance. Do the dance.
But the best, we stay above the rest. More quality, more affordability. Kingdom Books and Stationery. Everybody's going to the one and only shop where customer satisfaction is a guarantee. Kingdom Books and Stationery.
Oh yes, with our 30 days credit facility with no interest charge, free delivery services, and our free consultation on setting up your office, Kingdom Books and Stationery is unmatched in our delivery of quality and affordable office essentials, equipment, and furniture.
Experience world-class customer service in all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Cape Coast, and Takoradi.
Call us on 0302-764-101
or visit our website at www.kingdomgh.com.
Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials and stationery. Terms and conditions apply.
Let us help you bank with the right bank. At First National Bank, we're more than just a bank. We're a digital partner that actually understands your business. Enjoy massive value with our various banking solutions. Get a business check account, a day-to-day transactional account for all businesses from all sectors of the economy. Access our online banking enterprise and bank your way 24/7. Invest with our short or long-term options that enable immediate access to funds. Optimize your cash flow, raise capital, and acquire assets with ease with our lending solutions. solutions, trade with speed, consistency, and innovation with our global payments and forex solutions. With so much value up for grabs, there is no reason not to bank with First National Bank. First National Bank. How can we help you?
Thanks so much for staying with us here on Newsnight on Joy 99.7 FM. We're also live on myjoyonline.com. Now, it's been 2 straight nights of sleeping in darkness across the country, but we have 5 more days to go before that ends, as Energy Minister John Peter Amewu is assuring that government will resolve the current power challenges. Also, he's been hitting back at the minority, describing them as doomsayers or doomsayers, he says. And he's saying that they are wishing that Ghana will go back to the days of power outages, but the recent power problems are purely due to technical challenges which will be resolved in days. He's been speaking to the press after touring some substations and thermal plants.
The minority, there is no way they would accept the facts of what is happening now in the power sector, because they would have wished that this country is brought back to the days, of prolonged, power outages. We have worked very seriously to make sure that we address those problems. So I can assure Ghanaians that this problem, as you've all gone around to say it yourself, is basically a technical problem. That doesn't run out the fact that, of course, you will need liquid gas, you will need liquid fuel to fire this plant. Those are also necessary ingredients to make sure that the plants are working, and we have sufficient of those now. Once in a while, as we've been told, there's a drop from supply of gas from Nigeria. What we're doing currently is to negotiate with other offshore producers to make sure that we get a spot gas, in the market, and we can put in a spot gas into the same pipeline. So when there's a shortfall in gas from Nigeria, that can also equally address it. Yeah, let it be the minorities thinking that, Ghanaians should expect worse. But let it be coming from the majority thinking that Ghanaians should, of course, expect the best. We're not going to expect the worst in this country. We will not do that. We will make sure we confront this problem and address it quickly as possible.
So the Energy Minister also visited, as part of the tour, they visited Pokuase, where there's a construction of a 3-tier interchange, which has been blamed as the major cause of the interruptions, but hopeful that the work there will be completed within 5 days for regular power supply to be restored.
What they are telling us, the technical people, they will address the problem. And we will be back on stream. So the problem will be solved. Definitely.
The assurance is 5 days.
Of course, yes. You listen to them, 5 days.
For everybody.
But you see, I keep on sounding this warning. Intermittent power shortfall sometimes in some areas are due to some technical issues, even within the supply end. Some people within an enclave, there could be a transformer problem within that area. That has nothing to do with this large-scale problems that we're having. Those will be dealt with. That has nothing to do with what we're seeing across the country. So those may come. Those are technical issues that you may see once in a while. Don't forget, Ghana, most of our equipment, of course, still the conventional equipment. Some of them are old. They are trying to change a lot of them. So this experience is, we may witness it. And you can see the introduction of new towers, one of the best towers so far, I've been told. And definitely because of the construction work that is going on, there's a need, for them to, halt the transmission of power. Let me use that word, for this period. And so these are some of the problems, that they are facing. But you can see the progress of work. And I'm thinking, my expectation is that it's going to be completed within
about 5 days.
About 5 days, yeah. But we put in measures to minimize the impact. But this is also one of the major, causes of the interruptions, as we keep on telling, our cherished customers that there are technical issues that, made us, encounter this difficulty.
So you heard that the Energy Minister, John Peter Amewu. We also have on the phone, privileged so the GridCo boss, Mr. Jonathan Amoakumba. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. Looks like we've lost Mr. Amoakumba, have we? Looks like we've lost Mr. Amoakumba there on the phone, but we'll work the lines and see if we can raise the GridCo boss, Mr. Amoakumba, back on the line, because the minority had raised some concerns about the fact that it is due to our inability to be able to purchase crude. But Nanaya Ojima has been interacting with some residents of Kumasi and came through with this report.
The issue of fluctuating voltage seems to be the worst of concerns of power consumers. Areas which are spared by complete interruption have to contend with repeated fluctuation, in some instances in blinking fashion. Consumers share their frustrations.
Common fan cannot function, and within a twinkle of an eye, it will move.
And because my TV was fluctuating.
Send you a video. It's about 21 seconds. 12 shots of images that I took from the interface of my meter. At some point it was 260. Some point it was 250. It came down to 211. Now this time we will take you people on.
For the second night running, parts of Kumasi were plunged into total darkness for hours. Not all affected places had power restored by break of the new day. Businesses which rely on electricity are reeling under the current situation. Frustrated operators are demanding a schedule to enable them plan if service providers are running load shedding. Consumers are divided over the cause, especially when officials are reluctant to provide information. While some blame it on inefficiency, others believe it is sabotage.
I'm suspecting sabotage. I think there are people within PDS who are not in favor of the takeover, and they are the causes of this.
They are just sabotaging the system. The same people at ECG, they are all the same people who are sabotaging what is going on. They should sack all of them.
If the regulator is looking at a situation where there is a service level agreement between them and us, the customers, where anytime each one is violated, they give them a penalty and give us a discount.
Meanwhile, the Public Utility Regulatory Commission wants the Ghana Grid Company to keep consumers regularly informed about such development. Ashanti Regional Head Francis Beidu says the commission is working with other stakeholders to find solution to the problem.
When we receive cases like that, we have to forward it to the service provider for them to respond. When they respond, we have to give their response back to the customer. It can be two ways. And those who have really come to lodge a complaint, like I really said, of their appliance getting damaged, have really gotten a positive result.
Nana Ojima reporting.
Now, let's come back here into the studios. Of course, you've heard the reaction or the response from the Energy Minister to the situation. It looks like we'll have 5 more days to grapple with this situation. Let's speak to energy expert, Mr. Kwame Jantua. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight, Mr. Jantua. So you've heard the Energy Minister, 5 more days, and we're sure that it will be rectified. Are you hopeful that that will happen, considering what you know in terms of what the situation actually is?
Good evening and good evening to your listeners. I think the major challenge we have here is information and communication. I believe that at any given time, when there's anything like this, that communication should be done so quickly so that it doesn't put customers on edge. And I think that is the challenge we've had, especially with the energy sector when we have these problems. Remember that the doomsday we went through caused a lot of psychological effect on Ghanaians. So any whippet of seeing lights go off, go on, quickly we run into where we've come from. And I think with communication, we'll be able to solve it. In terms of the 5 days the minister has given, he has attributed it to a question of technical problems. Yes, but technical problems, you can never tell what would happen. So I would have preferred that he would indicate that between now and the period of the 5 days, they would continue to advise Ghanaians and tell Ghanaians where they've gotten to, so that it builds some confidence, it builds some trust within the system.
But as part of that also, don't we need a schedule, do we?
Well, a schedule has got to do with whether it's going to be long-term. And this is where the challenge comes again, that the minister has said 5 days. If it goes beyond the 5 days, then people begin to wonder whether what the minister was saying was right or was wrong. That is why I'm saying that from the word go, we have identified that it's a technical problem. Advise Ghanaians every step of the way so that even if it goes slightly above the 5 days, then Ghanaians would probably be comfortable with it. Now, if it's going to be more than 5 days and we realize that the problems we have are going to take us into a month or so, then yes, we need to bring in some timetable so that Ghanaians can plan. And what Ghanaians are asking for is to be able to plan. Things are expensive. Look at where the dollar is today. Things are expensive. So if they buy food and they put in their fridge, They want to be able to know that it will last them.
Okay. Very well. Mr. Kwame Jantua, we're indeed grateful for your time, but we're out of time, so we'll have to end it here. It's time for sports, and Hans-Man Zarando is in the studio.
Yes, MFR. Now, the timely intervention of Ghana midfielder Emmanuel Ajimanbedu helped to avert disaster as he paid 2,500 Ghana cedis for the surgery of female footballer Afisatu Abubakar. Abubakar fell and broke her collarbone in a club-friendly that was last Saturday, with x-ray showing a broken bone pointing towards a vein which supplies blood to the brain. With the club unable to afford the 2,500 Ghana cedis cost of surgery, they resorted to an appeal for funds through social media. Tijani Omar Farouk is the CEO of Real Upper Ladies. So Emmanuel Ajimanbedu to the rescue there, and the young lady has gone through the surgery successfully and is responding to treatment. That's your sports.
Thank you very much, Hans. Now, Ghanaian musician and survivor of a double kidney malfunction, Andy Alexander Niakweshi, popularly known as OJ Black, says he was able to pull through the pain of the ailment because he received the support of his family and friends. OJ says he contracted the disease because he was living an unhealthy lifestyle. Hannah Odame has more in this report.
The Chalewata hitmaker said drinking so much alcohol and smoking caused his kidney disease.
I knew that there was lifestyle that was over smoking, drinking, eating late, eating junk, eating at the wrong time, drinking wrong things, fizzy drinks, all the very cold things and all that.
He says he was devastated when he heard the news of his ailment. After 7 months of dialysis, complemented by an immune booster, OJ started to see improvement in his health.
I had a feeling that immune booster will help me. Even if you're on the machine, immune boosters are recommended for you.
He says he does not want anyone to go through the pain he endured.
If you're smoking, you're just drinking anyhow, you're eating junk, you're eating too much meat, too much. Let's just try hard to eat well.
He also encouraged family members to be supportive of their relatives who have been diagnosed.
That positivity helps a lot. It makes them know that, oh, okay, so I'll survive. You know, that one alone, it wakes their spirit. That, Charlie, no, I won't die. So he's telling me that if I get well, we'll do this. It means I'll get well. You know, those are the positive things that I had.
OJ Black calls on government to subsidize the cost involved in treating the disease to reduce its financial toll on the patients. For Joy News, my name is Hannah Odame.
Such an encouraging story there for as we celebrate World Kidney Day. Now, radio and television personnel and disc jockeys may be living with various forms of hearing impairment from persistent use of ear and headphones. A study by a graduate student of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology reveals 67% of disc jockeys screened in Kumasi failed the test. On Tech Thursday, Love FM's Kwesi Debra finds out more and speaks to the researcher.
It's drive time on Love FM, and DJ Ruben is large and in charge.
Big shout going out to my brother John of Kumasi City Mall. That's the marketing.
He will engage his audience for the next 2 hours, not only with his smooth voice, but more importantly, his music playing. Ruben, wants a sound loud.
I need to get into that groove to be able to make you feel that out there. If I'm dull in here, you might be dull out there. If I get excited in here, I transfer the excitement through the airwaves out to you wherever you are.
A leading cause of hearing impairment is excessive noise exposure at the workplace. DJs and on-air presenters, by their profession, frequently use headphones, which can be the cause of some ear health problems. Dr. Muhammad Dia is an ear, nose and throat consultant at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital.
The sound processor in the inner ear, which we call cochlea, is very sensitive to sound. So if the intensity of the sound goes beyond certain limit, then it destroys the processor. Then in time, you are not able to appreciate sound as you should.
Sandra Nketiaba Sa's work, as part of her thesis in audiology, sought to investigate the effects of the use of earphones and headphones.
Out of the 145 DJs enrolled in the study, only 47 passed. The remaining 98 failed, and that is alarming. Out of the 288 respondents enrolled in the study, 228 complained of headache, frequent ringing in their ears. So sometimes they hear some sounds in their ears.
Wow, that's quite some revelation there. And that's it for tonight's edition of News Night. And just before we go, here's a reminder why we at Joy News are calling on authorities to find the missing Takoradi girls, because it's been more than 200 days since the first of the 3 girls disappeared, and the families continue to live with the pain. I am Emefa Apau. We leave you with the pain of a crying mother.